Property managers can save massive amounts of time with AI voice agents.
My name is Anna. I'm your AI agent today.
My shower is clogged. Hey guys, today we're building an AI voice agent that automatically classifies maintenance issues from tenants on the phone. This is how the final AI agent looks like. It's built in Retell, which is a tool that allows you to define these conversational steps. In the backend, it is powered by Airtable, where we will store all the tenant data and all the tickets. An automated calendar invite will be created for both the maintenance team and the tenant. Finally, the tenant will get a confirmation email, as you can see here, so that they know what the conversation was about and when the maintenance team will arrive. We will walk through the conversational design step by step, covering all important tasks such as tenant authentication, gathering the issue details, triaging them, scheduling the appointment, discussing how to design these flows high level based on a flow that we initially create in a Miro board, and then we translate this flow into a real-world AI voice agent that you can call right away. This is part of 30 AI agents in 30 days challenge. Subscribe to this channel to not miss out on any new agent. Plus, I'm giving away all this voice flow file and all links to the tools I'm using in the description below. But first, let's call this AI agent and see what they say.
Hi, this is Next Operation Property Management. You've reached the letting department. My name is Anna. I'm your AI agent today. How can I assist you?
Hey Anna, what's up? So I've got a problem. My shower is clogged.
Oh no, a clogged shower is never fun. I'm here to help get that sorted. Could you please tell me your name and which unit you're in? That way I can log the request properly.
Sure, my name is Robert Hangu and I'm based in 13 William Street.
Thanks, Robert. I'm just going to quickly look up your details in our system. Hold on a sec, please. Thanks for waiting, Robert. I've located your record in our system for 13 William Street. We've got you on file. Now, about that clogged shower, can you tell me a bit more about what's going on?
Yeah, sure. So it's been clogged for a couple of days now, and I was thinking of calling you guys and see how you can help.
Got it. Thanks for sharing that. Is the water not draining at all, or is it just really slow? And have you noticed any weird smells or noises coming from the shower drain? Just trying to get the full picture before we send someone over.
Right. So it is draining very, very slowly, and I'm afraid that it will start draining even slower.
Thanks for that info, Robert. When did you first notice the shower starting to drain slowly?
Well, it was about a week ago.
Thanks, Robert. So is the slow draining still happening all the time, or does it clear up sometimes and then slow down again?
It is permanent. It's constant.
Thanks for letting me know, Robert. Have you tried anything on your end yet? Like maybe using a plunger, pouring some drain cleaner, or anything like that? Just want to see what's been done before we send someone out.
Yeah, sure. So I've used a plunger, but yeah, actually it's impossible to fix on my own.
Thanks for trying the plunger, Robert. Since the slow drain has been constant for about a week and isn't improving, I'd say this moderately urgent. Definitely something we want to fix soon before it gets worse. I'll go ahead and log a maintenance ticket and arrange for a plumber to come check it out. Does sometime tomorrow work for you?
Let's better do on Wednesday. How does Wednesday morning work for you?
Wednesday morning sounds good. Just to confirm, would 9 a.m. on Wednesday, April 3rd work for the plumber to come by and take a look at your shower?
No, it's Wednesday, the 3rd of September.
Thanks for clarifying, Robert. So we have Wednesday, September 3rd available, but the earliest slot is 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Would 10 a.m. on Wednesday, September 3rd work for you?
Yeah, let's do that. It works.
All right, Robert, I'm booking the appointment for the plumber to come by at 10 a.m. on Wednesday, September 3rd. Hang on just a sec while I lock that in for you. All set, Robert. Everything's booked for 10 a.m. on Wednesday, September 3rd. You'll get an email confirming the date and the appointment is already in your calendar. Anything else I can help you with today?
No, that's all good. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. And it hung up. So we can see that an appointment has been booked directly inside my schedule. You saw it appearing as I was speaking to the AI agent. And then it also booked a ticket inside of the property management's CRM system. So you can see it here. It linked to my profile over here on 13 William Street. It set the urgency to be a scheduled repair because I said it's not urgent. The status is new and this is the appointment date. And then a short issue summary. Clogged shower draining very slowly so the plumber can see this before they arrive. And then if I go into my email inbox, I can see that a new email has arrived over here with the confirmation number 24, which is the same as here, and then with a short issue summary, clogged shower, draining very slowly, and when the appointment is scheduled. Feel free to respond on this email and so on, and a nice signature. Now you see how powerful this is. So let's get started into how I built this. So let's start with the basics. I've prepared a Miro diagram that showcases exactly the steps that the AI voice voice agent will go through, and I've split it in large blocks and small blocks within the large blocks. So the large blocks are processes that require sub-steps, and we will do this because later in the voice flow diagram, and when we create the steps of the workflow, we will need all these detailed steps. This is required such that in case the LLM tends to hallucinate, we will avoid any errors. So in this sense, we give it precise instructions. So Miro is a tool for diagramming where I can draw these simple shapes and drag them back and forth, write text into them. Nothing special. You might have your own favorite tool. Now let's dive into the workflow. So the first step is the greeting. Here the AI agent will say, hey, welcome to Next Property Management. How can I help? And this whole block, tenant authentication, is needed in order to get the name and the details of the caller and then check them against the database to see if they are who they say they are and if the data overlaps, so it's the same. And it might look complicated, but it's very simple. So the first step inside this block is collect the tenant identity, so their name and their full address. Then check against the database. So this is the tenant lookup. And here we will use a Airtable database. Airtable is like Google Sheets, but a bit more sophisticated and has more of like a CRM feel to it. Once the data was gathered from the database, we confirm it by reading the details back to the tenant and say if they say yes or no. If the data overlaps, we will continue to the next step. If not, we will collect the data again. Because it's possible that maybe the line is not so good, maybe the information hasn't got through or anything else. Now, once the data overlaps, we continue with the next step, which is gather the issue details. So this block here is all about exactly defining why the tenant has called, gathering all the details about the issue, and then ultimately to classify it. So the first step in this block is to gather the initial information. So what's the issue about? So for example, I've got a leaky faucet, or there's a leak in my pipe, or my shower is clogged, and so on, right? Then the second question is trying to qualify this. Like, when did this first happen? Like, was it a week ago? Was it yesterday? Then the next step, is it ongoing or intermittent? And then have you tried doing anything about this yourself? Now, your own property management company might have different steps, but the point here is that we specify each one by one, and the LLM or the AI voice agent will ask them one by one. Once that's done, we go into a step that assesses its urgency. So for example, if it says, hey, the water is bursting and flowing through the ceiling, then it is urgent and somebody has to come right away. And then you will continue with an immediate dispatch and continue with the next steps, but this is beyond the scope of this tutorial. Today we will have a look at a normal scheduled maintenance call that is non-urgent. So if it's non-urgent, we will continue down this path, and then this whole box here is all about finding the correct date and time that fits both the tenant and the maintenance team. So we will call this block appointment scheduling. So everything in this block is about finding the availability, okay? Now let's go through it step by step. The first step is ask about the preferred time and availability. So the tenant might say, okay, how about Monday 4 p.m.? Then the calendar availability check will have a look if the maintenance team or anybody who's in charge of this in your company is available on that day and time. And then are they available? If yes, then we will continue with confirming and booking this. If not, we will go back and ask for a different preferred date and time. Now, if the tenant is available, then we will go and book an appointment in the calendar of the maintenance team. And at the same time, the software cal.com that we will use, it will automatically send a calendar invite to the tenant as well, so that both are on the same time. And then if there was an error or something, so we will ask, okay, was the appointment booked inside of the system? If it wasn't booked for any reason whatsoever, it goes back and ask about the preferred time and availability, preferably a different one. If it was booked, then yes, then also save an appointment into the internal CRM of the property management, which we will use Airtable for. So this is such that the maintenance team can see all the upcoming appointments and interventions that they have. Once this has been done, then confirm the appointment back to the tenant, say, okay, here is the day and time that the team will come, here are all the details, and then finally end the call. So hang up the phone and finish the process. So this is how the whole process looks like. It might look a bit more complicated than it is, but we have to cover all of these details. Now, what we will do next is we will map all of this here into Retell. Retell is a software for designing conversation flows and connecting your phone number to it to talk to an AI agent. So we will go to retellai.com. This is their website, and then you'll click join or log in. This is how the dashboard looks like. So you come here to the upper right, click on new agent, create an agent, click on voice agent, and here you can choose different flows. And the flow that we will look at today is the conversational flow agent that allows you to specify these steps in detail one by one. It also has a single prompt and multi-prompt agents that we won't look at, or a completely custom LLM. So let's go into the conversational flow agent. And by the way, in all the other tutorials of the 30-day challenge, I'll use the multi-prompt agent because it's the most versatile. It is a bit more predictable and configurable than the single prompt agent that has just one prompt, but it's very prone to LLM hallucination errors. And it's a bit easier to set up than the conversational flow agent. It has a bit fewer options, but today we will have a look into configuring this agent step by step so that it doesn't miss any of the important questions of your issue triaging process. Okay, so we click this, start from blank and create. Now this is how the interface of the conversational flow creation looks like. So here in the middle, you have this canvas that looks very similar to the one we saw in Miro, where you have building blocks where you can drag them around. And then here on the left, you have this list that contains the different type of blocks that you can choose. So conversational block, function block, we've already had them in Miro. I will go back for a second. So for example, here I use these dark gray blocks for conversational blocks, more or less, and then these yellow-orange database type of blocks for the function blocks. So this is where we connect to an external system. In this case here, Airtable or cal.com when we check for the availability. So for this, we have the function block here. Then we have the call transfer, which is very important for urgent calls, like we saw here. This is the step that we won't cover in this tutorial, but this one would transfer you to a different phone number to a real human agent, and then some other ones that we won't have a look at right now. So we will handle all the conversation flow with the conversation block and the function block. Now the first node in our case, if we go back to Miro, is the greeting block. So here we will basically tell the AI agent how to greet a person. So the prompt is to, hey, this is next operation property management. You reach the lettings department. My name is Anna. How can I assist you? And we can choose between static sentence or prompt. Here we will use static sentence. We want the LLM to read this to the caller verbatim. If we want to be a bit more flexible, and we will see this in the next nodes, we will use prompt, where the LLM has some flexibility. And we'll rename this to greeting and context. Now here we need the two, or basically the one condition here to continue to the next step. So now we will configure these arrows. These are the transitions. And in this sense, we will use a costume one, and we will say the user, or even better, we'll say tenant mentions the issue. And then we'll connect to the next node, which again will be a conversation node, which appears here. So we will connect the two. So it means that once the tenant mentions the issue, it will instantly continue to the next block. Now inside of our Miro, this was collect tenant identity, name, and full address. So we'll call this collect tenant identity and address and full address. And the prompt will be ask the tenant for the following details, tenant name and the unit where they live. So here we want the whole address and unit. And here we will choose prompt, because here we will leave it to the LLM to formulate this. We don't want to be set in stone in this case. But for example, in the greeting, we want to have this because the greeting is always the same. But this depends on your company and how you want to handle things. Now the transition will be tenant gives their information, or better, tenant provides their information. Now once this has been collected, we will have a tool here. We will have a function call. And the reason for this is because we want to connect with the calendar. So we click function, and now it asks me what kind of function do I want. So I click on add, and Retell already has the connection pre-configured with cal.com. So I'll click check on calendar availability, and what I have to provide here, so I have to provide the name of the function, which is okay, check availability cal. The description is already pre-configured, I don't have to do anything. And here I need the API key of cal.com. So how do we get this? Let's go to our cal.com account. So as the name says, it's cal.com. This is how the front page looks like. And then you can create an account, or if you already have one, you sign in. It's a popular scheduling tool. It's similar to Calendly. And this is how the dashboard looks like. How do we get the API key? We click on settings down here, and then the profile appears. So here on the left, we click on API keys, and then up here, we will click add, and then here we will name this key. So we can say test AI agent, and the expiration date, depending on how much you want to have it. I have it that never expires. You can also delete them later on, no worries, and then you click save. So I've already generated a key for this, which we will use for this demo. You'll paste the key here, then the event type ID. So how do you get the type ID? You go back to your dashboard, record. And here where you see all the events, you click on one event, and then inside the address bar here, after event types, you copy this ID. And this ID is the event type ID. So you paste it here, you set your time zone, and then you click save, and then it's done. Then you click add. And you will see that this function appears here like the other blocks, like the conversation blocks. So I just connect them. And here I can specify only a transition. I cannot specify a prompt or anything because this won't read anything to the user. This is just happening in the background where it will connect with the cal.com API. The only thing we have to do, we have to specify a transition here. Now, if we go back to Miro, it will transition into confirm the authentication. So read it back. So we'll call the transition, we will select prompt, and we will call this tenant list fetched. And this will go to the next block where we will read this back. Now, the function blocks also have their speciality. When we see here over the right where I can configure them, they have this option speak during execution. So if I choose this, I can say something to the caller while this tool is working in the background. Now think about it. Let's say that this tool has some latency, or their servers are busy or something, and it takes a bit longer. And saying this to the tenant shows that there is progress in the background, even though it's working or it's waiting. So it's a bit like these rotating loading circles that you know from websites. It's a bit like that. And we can tell it, say that you're briefly looking them up in the database to get their details, and they should hold on for a second. So this makes for a very nice transition. Now in the next step, we confirm to them that we were able to locate a tenant in the database, and we will also give a little specification on their tone. Don't sound overly enthusiastic, keep a professional and calm tone. And we will rename this block into confirm successful data fetch, and the transition, here we will have two. One is if the tenant confirms the details, and the other one if the details aren't the correct ones. So we'll specify a second one, and this will be tenant mentioned unit doesn't overlap with the one on record. Now, in the case where it doesn't overlap, if we go back to Miro, we will go back to collect the tenant identity. So we will just create a link here to the initial or to the second block like this. So if we see, this looks pretty close to what we have in Miro here. And now we have to go to gathering the issue details. So we will create a new conversation block over here and call it gather issue details 1. And we'll prompt it with gather information about the issue. What exactly is the issue? And here the transition will be initial issue details collect. Now we will go and continue with the second block, just as we did in Miro over here. So we will say, when did you first notice this? We'll call this gather issue details 2. And now I'm going to go ahead and fill in this whole pipeline. What I basically do, I just copy paste everything that's in here into here. So here I've copied all of the data that we had in Miro on this step, gather issue details one by one into these steps over here. So we have all these follow-up questions, and then each one over here has a transition, condition, tenant response, and a response. So the last question is, have you tried anything yourself? And then once that is answered, we go to assess the urgency. And here in the urgency, there are two things we can do. One is urgent and one is non-urgent. We will leave the urgent step out for the sake of the scope of this demo, and we will just continue with the non-urgent step. So for this, we just need a very simple transition, urgency level determined. And the next step will be to schedule the appointment. So the first step of the appointment scheduling is asking about the preferred time and availability. So we'll call this step ticket creation and scheduling, and we'll prompt it a little longer. We'll say ask for a date when they're available for any of these people to come by, like handyman, plumber, electrician, depending on the issue that they have. And then once the tenant says when they're available, I say, okay, use your judgment to infer the exact date in a calendaristic way. So for example, they might say Tuesday, but then cal.com requires you to specify a date. So the LLM should come up with the proper date and time here. So we'll connect the two. And the transition condition here is get the date and time from the tenant. And then we will connect it with the function, the check availability cal that we have configured earlier. So we will connect it here. And there are two transitions, if there's availability at that time, and the other one if there's no availability. Now I'm realizing just now that I did a small mistake. Up here where we check if the tenant is actually in the database, we shouldn't have connected with cal.com because obviously the calendar doesn't tell you the data of the property manager. So here we had to connect with Airtable. We will very easily change this into the Airtable API connection. So this is what we will do now. So here we click on delete. We don't need this. We will create a new function. And in here, instead of check the availability, we will add, and instead of picking the to calendar predefined functions, we will create a costume function. Now here we will connect to the Airtable API. Now, quick detour, what is Airtable? Airtable is something like Google Sheets. You go to airtable.com. If you don't have an account, you sign up. This is how the dashboard looks like. And then you click create, and then you click build an app on your own. And then the base opens up. So the base is like a spread, like a Google Sheet that has multiple tabs. Okay. And it also has an AI agent here, which we won't need for the moment. And then you can name it. You can work the same way as you do with Google Sheets. You can specify data here. You have different columns, the different column types. You can edit the columns and so on. Now for this demo, I've already prepared a table for you, and this table looks like this. It contains two subtables. One is called tenants and one is called tickets. So the tenants table has all the tenants in the database with the name, unit, email, and so on. And the tickets contain all the tickets that get created during calls. And the AI agent will write new tickets into this database or into this table. Now, how do I get the API key of this? Down here, you click on this help button, and then you click API documentation. Now, this is an API documentation that was generated on the fly for this particular database that we had just now. And here on the left, we can see the tables, and we go to the tenants table because this is the table that we want to check against. And it has various functions, and what we are interested in is list records. So we click on list records, and then over here, we see that it is a GET request. There are two types of requests, GET and POST, for any API connection in the world, and various others, but these are the basic ones. GET means I get data, so I read data from the database, and POST means I post it, I write to it. We will need this once we create a ticket. And if we scroll here to the right, this is the connection string. We take this up to the question mark. Everything after that is a query parameter. We're not interested in this right now. We come back to Retell, where we configure the function. We give it a name, and we will call this get tenants description. Gets a list of all tenants, and then here in API endpoint, I will select get, and here I will paste this connection string. And I also need authentication parameters, which I specify inside the headers. So I click on new key value pair, and I type authorization, and then the value will be bearer and my API key. Now, how do I get my API key? And why is this important? This is important so that not everybody can access my Airtable database if they know this connection string. Okay, very important. So it's kind of like a password, okay? So this means, hey, go to this table with this password. How do I get the password that comes here after the bearer? So there's the bearer, and then there's a code that is the password. I go back to Airtable, to my table, and down here I click on my profile pic, and then I click on account. And in account, here I click on API, go to Developer Hub, and in the Developer Hub, I click Create Token. Here I click Create Token again, and then here I specify some details about token. So the name of the token, and I can call it Retell AI agent, and then I click on scopes, and then this list appears. So here the scopes that I need are the first two, data records read and data records write. It means I can read data from Airtable and write it. And then I click on create token. But since I already have an API key for this created, I will use that instead. So I just pasted it here, and I'm good. I can click save. And now this tool was created here, get tenants. So I click add, and now you see that this block appeared here with the tenants. And then we'll just use the prompt here in speak during execution that we used earlier. We say that you're briefly looking them up. And the transition condition, again, we will use a prompt, and we'll name it tenant list fetched. And then from here, we'll connect it to the next step. Now let's continue with checking for availability after we've gathered all the details about the issue. Now I've already explained how we configured this. This is already built into Retell. And if there's no availability, we just have a quick message that will say, it should ask the tenant when they're available, and the transition is if the tenant mentions another day and time when they're available, it just loops back here into the availability check. And if there is availability, then we will continue to confirm the appointment. So this confirms the date and time. So it also makes sure to specify the month such that it avoids any misunderstandings. And then it has three transition steps or conditions. If the tenant confirms, if the tenant isn't available then, and if there was a date misunderstanding running, so it has to check again. So the two easy ones is if the tenant isn't available then we will just connect it again with this node that asks them for availability. If there was a misunderstanding, check availability for the clarified date. So here the LLM will check what the new date is and check against that. And then if the tenant confirms, we have another node, which is a function node where we can book this appointment. So we click add, and then here we use the pre-built function build book on calendar. Now again, we will do the same thing as we did before. These two are pre-filled, so we just need the API key and the event type ID. We will use the same as in the previous step. So I just filled those in. I click add, and then we have the function here, and we will connect the one where the tenant confirms with it. Again, we use this trick where it speaks during execution. So we just say, if you're booking the appointment right now, they should hang on for a sec. Then we have two transitions. One is appointment booked, and the other one is can't book appointment for whatever reason. Now, if we cannot book the appointment, usually it's a calendar collision or something. So we go back to the calendar collision step, where we then go back to ask a new date and time, and again, checking the availability and retaking the whole flow. So you can see this if I go to Miro again, and we have this whole flow here where we book an appointment and then it's not booked, it goes back here. So it's this step here. And if the appointment is booked, I need to create a ticket. So now I go to function again. So the ticket is being created inside of Airtable, right? So I click add custom function, and here I say create ticket. Creates a ticket about the tenant's issue, and here I use the post request. So now I go back to the documentation that I had earlier, and here on the left I go to create records, and I do this in the tickets table, create records, and we will see here that it says this is a post request. Okay, so here then it matches what I just selected, and then here is the connection string. So I copy this here into the post request. Again, I use the headers, so to show that it's me and that nobody else has access to it. And then here I must specify how does the data format look like that I post here. Now I go back to the API documentation, and it has this information for me, and it's here. So this is how it looks like. But I don't specify this directly. I specify a JSON schema. Now this might sound a bit complicated. You see it says enter JSON schema here. You see this here. So the JSON schema is different from this object. So I don't specify just this object with the tenant, urgency, status, and so on. But it's a bit more complex, but there is a workaround. There is an API JSON schema generator. If you go to the playground of OpenAI, where you can test out the API, you go to the prompts section where you can basically test it out here on the left. You go to chat prompts, and then you click on create, and then you will use this tool here. You click here on the settings and then text format JSON schema. And here it has a neat function called generate. It allows you to generate a JSON schema based on how the object actually looks like. And here you can paste the object. So in this case, I will have just one in this array. Now you see it is a bit technical, but I promise this is the most technical that it gets in this demo, and it's very easy to use. I specify all of the links that you need in the description below, and I also give away the complete Retell agent. So the complete thing here that we're specifying, including with all prompts, so you don't have to write anything right now. You just download it via the link in the description below, and then you will import it into Retell. I will show you how to import it so you can hit the ground running and get started with this agent right away, and just change your API keys, change your connection strings to match your own data, and then you can go ahead and automate your inbound. Now we click create here, and now it will create this JSON object schema, and you see that it looks different from the data that we pasted in, right? So it has all of these sub properties, but this is just a specification. So it says, okay, this is a list of repair records and all the fields that it supports, tenant, urgency, the type. So this is such that the LLM understands when it should use it and what it should use it for. So now we copy everything here under schema, make sure you don't miss any accolade out, and we will paste it here, enter JSON schema. And important here, we will use payload args only. So this is that the LLM sends just the raw data and not the specification. Again, this is the most technical it gets. It won't get any more technical. Just trust me, select this, click save. And then I have access to this tool, create ticket. So I click add, and now I connect this to appointment booked. And then the last transition is called ticket was created. So this is the last step. So once that's done, we have one more message, and we'll call it say goodbye and hang up. and we'll prompt it with tell them everything's booked. They'll receive an email confirming the dates and so on. And we connect these two. And then here we need one more tool, and we will call the transition here tenant says everything's good and says goodbye. And the tool here is the hang up tool. So it's called ending. So ending means it's an internal tool that Retell calls and then it interrupts or it hangs up, so the call ends. So if we look back into the Miro board, this is basically this stage here. And there's one more thing that I forgot earlier. Maybe the tenant wants to add one more thing, right? Or a different issue. So here we can add a new transition. That's called tenant has another issue. And then we transition all the way back to the initial triaging. So here we transition back to gather issue details 1. So that basically it retakes the whole process and gathers the details again. So this will be a long arrow and we've got it here. Now we need to still specify a few things here on the right where we configure the complete AI agent end-to-end, including the system prompt and the model. So the AI model depends and determines how good it is. So we have GPT, we have different choices here, OpenAI's GPT, Claude, Gemini. I found that GPT-4.1 Mini is a very good choice and very well balances cost and accuracy. GPT Nano sometimes misses when to call different tools, it misses transitions, and the GPT-4.1 is too powerful. It's more powerful than we need, and it's kind of like an overkill for this situation. So we choose GPT-4.1 Mini, the language, English, and here we can also choose a voice. There's different voices, like for example, this one, we can test it. First, here we click this play button.
Hi, I'm Adrian, your friendly virtual helper, always here to make your daily tasks easier and stress-free. What would you like assistance with today?
So we can choose the one that we like. So I found that this one is pretty good. It's the default one.
Hey there, I'm Simo, your resilient AI collaborator, ready to rise the occasion and transform your productivity.
So we will use this one, and then we need the system prompt here. So the system prompt governs the complete behavior and the way the AI agent talks. So for this, I've already prepared a prompt that is structured in different sections, as we can see here. So one section is identity, the other one is style guardrails and response guidelines and rebuttals, and finally some other information. Now we click save. I will just briefly jump through this. You have access to it when you download the complete AI voice agent in the link below. But just to briefly touch upon some important points here, here we specify the identity. So who they are, how their communication style is, to speak like a real human, they're reliable but approachable. Then a few style guardrails, how it should talk, plain conversational English, not too complex, concise, sound like a human, warm, upbeat, some response guidelines, ask clarifying follow-up questions, reassure the caller, and so on and so forth. How should it handle rebuttals? If the tenant is frustrated, acknowledge sincerely. If it's out of your scope, say it is, be honest about it, and then any other information that it should take care of. And then we have some other options here, like a knowledge base, like if we want RAG, if your property management company has. So in case you have any internal protocols and so on, I've also got a video on this in the 30-day challenge. Also on property management on how to properly configure the RAG database if you have internal documents. So make sure to click this link somewhere around here. And otherwise we are pretty good with the defaults here. Now, how do we test this agent? There are two ways. We click on test agent. There's testing the audio and testing the chat. So testing the audio gives you a similar call as I did in the beginning. And if you do test chat, you can manually text this AI agent and it saves you some costs because there is no voice synthesizer involved. And it can also be more helpful because you can see each of the steps that it goes through. So for example, here it shows you the current node, greeting and context, and it also shows you here that this one's highlighted. So we are inside of this node. So you can see this here. Hi, this is Next Operations. How can I assist you today? So I can say, hey, my shower's clogged. So now we can see that it transitioned here, and you can also see it here inside the chat, node transition, right? And we can see it here that the second one is highlighted. And now, can you please tell me your name and address? So I briefly looked this up in the database. I'm stored here under 13 William Street. So I will provide this. So I say it's Robert Hangu living at 13 William Street. And now it will transition to the next step where it will get the tenants from the database. So this was quite quick, but in the call, it explicitly mentions everything. So it says, thanks, Robert. I'm just going to look you up. It invoked the tool. I can see the tool results, and I can also see the node transition that happened. And it says, okay, thanks. I found you in the system. Can you confirm that's correct? So now I can see if something has changed in the meantime, I can obviously say this. So I say yes. It goes on to the next node, as we can see here. Here I made a little mistake. I should have connected this to the next node, which I will do right now. So I can delete this, and then I can click resend, and now it should trigger the node transition. It did so. So now we are in this node, gather the details. So I say it's draining super slowly. Now it asks me, when did I notice this? It's about a week old. Now it asks, is it still ongoing? Yes, it's ongoing. And the last question, have you tried doing anything? For example, running hot water for a bit, or a plunger. I've used a plunger, but to no avail. Now it has transitioned to the next node, which is basically assessing the urgency. It says it's moderately urgent, which is correct. Let's fix it soon to avoid it getting worse. Does it still work okay otherwise, or is it causing any leaks? It's working okay otherwise, but it starts filling up more and more. Please send somebody over soon. Okay, now it went to ticket creation and scheduling. And now when would be a good date and time for a plumber to come by? Now I'll say, how about Wednesday afternoon? So now we can see that it has checked the availability. It got some results, and we can see that it selected Wednesday, September 9th or the 10th. And I see, okay, the 10th isn't suitable. It's not the right one. So I say, I meant September 3rd. So now it will go through the transition where it was a misunderstanding. So now it quickly went back to check the availability that we can see here, check availability, and then the tool result offered the time slots, and now it's correct. And now when am I available? Okay. Let's do 3 p.m. Now what it did, it invoked the booking, the call calendar booking, says, okay, success. If I look into my calendar, it has booked it correctly on Wednesday, 3 p.m. Then it invoked the create ticket. Now if I look into the Airtable database, I can see that the ticket was created under my name just now, and it's scheduled repair, it's status new, the time it was scheduled, and a bit of a summary so that the plumber knows what to expect when they arrive there. And it asks me, okay, anything else I can help you with? And I can say, no, that's all, thanks. And now it will call the end call tool, and all is good. So you see, this whole transition and the whole workflow is very, very deterministic. So you can use this for any situation when you have to follow a protocol very, very strictly, and you have a very fixed SOP inside of your company. Now, of course, if we go back to Miro for a second, of course, you could use just one node for each of these steps, right? For the big blocks, for this block, for this block, for this block. But then you would rely on the LLM being very reliable to figure out the transitions and so on. And most of the time it works well. It works really well. If you prompt it right, it's very good, and it's a good mix. So you would have all of these 4 steps into one step, all of these into another one, and the last ones into a different one. So you would have about 5-6 steps, including these ones. Most of the other demos I did in this 30-day AI agent challenge are based on the multi-prompt agent, but I always recommend to look at the use case that you want to automate, and then decide on a case-by-case basis if you need like a very granular conversation flow here, or if you need and can work with a more free agent, let's say, and that is more adaptable in each of these situations. Now we can go ahead and publish this agent. This is how you connect it to a phone number. So the version is okay, and then you select the phone number you want connected to. So you connect the phone numbers that you want to use, and then you click publish. So this number is already connected. So then you click publish, and it's all good. I won't go into the details of how to get a phone number and how to connect it, but just briefly, here you go to the phone numbers section and you add a phone number over here, and you can either buy a phone number inside of Retell, or you can connect your number via SIP trunking. For example, if you've bought it through Twilio, right? So if you connect it through Twilio, you just have to specify the Twilio details here that you get on the Twilio dashboard, termination URI, SIP trunk username, SIP trunk password, and basically you're all set. As I mentioned earlier, I'm sharing the complete AI agent with you that you can upload into Retell as a JSON file, and you do this up here by clicking the import button, and then here you can choose one file from your local system, which will be the file that I'm sharing with you, and then you have access to the complete AI agent as you see it in here, with all of the prompts, system prompt, the prompts for each step, the tool connections. The only thing you have to do is here you have to change your own API connection and your own API key, and then obviously recreate the data in Airtable that we saw here. This is part of a series of 30 AI agents in 30 days, and if you like this video, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss on any of the new agents coming up. There are still 16 agents to go, covering different industries from hospitality to real estate, property management, legal, law, basically most industries that rely heavily on phone and text interactions with their clients. Feel also free to share this video with somebody that you know in these industries, and especially in property management if you enjoyed this video. And I'll hope to see you in the next one. Cheers!